You think you hate your job, but you don't. What you actually hate is being forced to pretend your time is worth exactly the same at 9 a.m. on Monday as it is at 3 p.m. on Friday. Right now, you're trading your most valuable asset, time, for money at a fixed rate, regardless of how much value you actually create. It's like selling a Ferrari for the price of a bicycle because someone told you that's what cars cost. The shift I'm about to show you doesn't require quitting your job, starting a business, or taking any big risks. But it will fundamentally change how you think about work, money, and freedom. And once you make this shift, you'll never see the 9-to-5 trap the same way again. Let me tell you what's really wrong with the traditional 9-to-5 model, and it's not what most people think. Everyone complains about the hours, the boss, the commute, the meetings, but those are just symptoms of the real disease. The real problem is that the 9-to-5 system teaches you to think like an employee instead of like an owner. You learn to trade time for money instead of learning to create value that works without you. Here's what I mean. In a 9-to-5 job, you get paid for showing up, not for results. You get paid the same whether you solve a $1 million problem or spend the day in pointless meetings. You get paid whether you're having your most creative day ever or you're basically a zombie at your desk. This system trains your brain to think that income equals hours worked, but that's the biggest lie in the modern economy. The wealthiest people in the world make money while they sleep because they've learned to create systems, not just complete tasks. When you think like an employee, you ask, how can I get a raise? When you think like an owner, you ask, how can I create more value? That one question changes everything. The shift that transformed my entire relationship with work was realizing that every single day I was either building someone else's dream or building my own. There was no neutral ground. When I was spending my evenings watching Netflix and complaining about work, I was actively choosing to stay trapped. When I was using my lunch breaks to scroll social media instead of learning new skills, I was choosing to stay trapped. The shift isn't about working more hours, it's about shifting from consumption to creation during your non-work time. Instead of spending your evening consuming other people's content, you spend it creating your own value. This doesn't mean you have to become an entrepreneur overnight. It means you start thinking like someone who owns their career instead of someone who just has a job. I started asking myself, what did I create today that didn't exist yesterday? If the answer was nothing, I knew I'd spent another day building someone else's future instead of my own. Here's how I started implementing this shift without quitting my day job or taking any financial risks. I gave myself 1 hour each morning before work to work on something that belonged to me. Not exercise, not reading, not planning my day. 1 hour of creating something that could potentially generate income or open opportunities in the future. Some days it was learning a new skill through online tutorials. Some days it was building a simple website. Some days it was writing content or reaching out to people in industries I was interested in. The key was that this hour was mine. My job owned 8 hours of my day, but this 1 hour was building my future instead of just funding my present. After 6 months of consistent morning creation time, I had learned web design, built a portfolio, and landed my first freelance client. Not enough to quit my job, but enough to prove that I could create value outside of the traditional system. This wasn't about becoming a side hustle guru or working 80-hour weeks. It was about reclaiming ownership of my time and skills. The biggest revelation was understanding the difference between trading time for money and creating value that pays you repeatedly. When you trade time for money, you're essentially renting yourself out by the hour. The moment you stop working, the money stops coming. You're always starting from zero each day. But when you create value, you build assets that can generate income, even when you're not actively working on them. A course you create once can sell hundreds of times. A system you build can serve thousands of customers. Content you publish can attract opportunities for years. I started small. Instead of just doing my job tasks, I began documenting processes that could help other people. I turned solutions to common problems into simple guides. I shared insights from my industry that could help others avoid mistakes I'd made. None of this took away from my day job performance. If anything, thinking about how to create value made me better at my regular job because I was always looking for ways to improve and systematize. The mindset shift was huge. Instead of just completing assigned tasks, I was actively looking for problems to solve and improvements to make. Another part of this shift was realizing that the most valuable people aren't necessarily the best at one thing. They're good at multiple complementary skills. Instead of trying to become the world's best at one specific skill, I started building what I call a skill stack. I combined my existing knowledge with new abilities that made me more unique and valuable. For example, if you're good with numbers and you learn basic design skills, suddenly you can create financial reports that actually look professional. If you understand your industry and learn content creation, you can become the go-to person for insights in that field. I spent my commute time listening to podcasts about industries I was curious about. I used my lunch breaks to take online courses. I turned boring weekend time into learning time by following online tutorials. Each new skill didn't just add to my abilities, it multiplied them. The combination of skills made me stand out in ways that being slightly better at my existing job never could. This wasn't about becoming a Renaissance person. It was about strategically building abilities that worked together to create more opportunities and more value. The shift also changed how I thought about relationships and networking. Instead of just hanging out with coworkers and complaining about our jobs, I started connecting with people who were building things I admired. I began engaging with creators in my field on social media, not to ask for favors, but to add value to their conversations. I attended virtual events and industry meetups during my free time. I reached out to people whose careers I found interesting, just to learn about their paths. The amazing thing about value-focused thinking is that it changes how you interact with everyone. Instead of networking to get something, you network to give something. You look for ways to help others solve problems or achieve their goals. This approach opened doors I didn't even know existed. I got invited to collaborate on projects, was offered consulting opportunities, and made connections that led to career opportunities I never would have found through traditional job searching. The best part was that these relationships felt authentic because they were based on mutual value creation rather than just career advancement. One of the hardest parts of this shift was breaking free from hourly thinking. When you've been conditioned to think that work equals time, it's difficult to imagine other ways of creating value. I had to train myself to focus on outcomes instead of hours. Instead of thinking about how long something took me, I started thinking about what problems it solved or what value it created. This changed everything about how I approached both my day job and my personal projects. The crazy thing is that when you focus on value instead of time, you often end up being more efficient. You waste less time on activities that don't matter and invest more energy in things that create real impact. I also stopped feeling guilty about not being constantly busy. If I could solve a problem in 30 minutes that used to take 3 hours, that wasn't laziness. That was improvement. The most powerful part of this shift is that it compounds over time. Every skill you learn makes the next skill easier to acquire. Every piece of value you create opens doors to create more value. Every relationship you build through value creation leads to more opportunities. After 2 years of consistent morning creation time and value-focused thinking, I had built enough skills and connections that I could choose my own projects. I wasn't just looking for the next job, I was creating my own opportunities. The 9 to 5 became a choice rather than a necessity. I still worked traditional jobs when they aligned with my goals, but I also had other options. I could take on consulting projects, create digital products, or collaborate with other creators. Most importantly, I never felt trapped again, because I knew I could create value in multiple ways. Economic security came from my ability to solve problems and create value, not from a single employer. The shift from thinking like an employee to thinking like an owner changed not just my career, but my entire relationship with work and money. If you want to make this shift yourself, start tomorrow morning with one simple question. What can I create today that will add value to someone else's life? It doesn't have to be big. It could be a helpful post on social media or spending an hour learning a skill that could benefit others. The key is consistency, not perfection. 1 hour of value creation every day compounds into massive results over time, but only if you actually do it consistently. Stop waiting for permission to build the career you want. Stop waiting for the perfect opportunity or the right moment. The shift from employee thinking to owner thinking starts with how you spend the next hour of your life. If this shift in thinking resonates with you, hit that like button and subscribe for more content about building the career you actually want instead of just accepting the one you have. And here's my challenge. For the next week, spend just 1 hour each day creating something valuable. Document what you learn, help solve someone's problem, or build a skill that interests you. Then come back and tell me in the comments what you created. The 9 to 5 trap is optional. Your freedom starts with your next decision. What will you create first?